Michael stayed late at work that day. All the other employees had already left, and only the cleaning lady, Ida, was loudly rattling the buckets and slamming the doors. "Are you always the last one here?" the kind old woman asked, completely disregarding the fact that she was talking to the director of the company. But Michael liked this simple woman. She reminded the man of his mother. She was also small, fussy, and very kind. Michael sighed. He felt incredibly ashamed of the fact that he hadn't seen his mother in 3 years, since he hadn't had any time off in just as long. The young man dived headlong into starting his own business, which took 3 years. 3 long, difficult years without any rest or entertainment. Now, by his 35th birthday, Michael had his own small accounting company, 2 cars, and a big apartment downtown. But for some reason, he still didn't feel happy. The man disappeared at work for days on end. He was always the first one in and the last one out, and hadn't taken a year off in 3 years. The most important thing for Michael was the fact that he had achieved everything on his own, thanks to his own hard work and perseverance. The man didn't have rich parents, rather the contrary. He came from a poor family from the outback, where his mother still lived. Colleagues and friends respected Michael because they appreciated his strong, confident personality and diligence. He honestly provided work for 24 people, having put together a good and reliable team. But no one could have guessed what was really going on in the man's soul, because he'd been depressed for several months now. Michael suddenly realized that his work was bringing him less and less satisfaction, while his hobbies didn't bring pleasure, and his interest in everything that surrounded him was slowly fading. Of course, the man understood that it was time to start a family, and he really wanted to have children. But on the other hand, after his previous painful experience in a relationship, Michael didn't really trust women anymore. It seemed to him that everyone was after his status and money. "You should have a rest, son. You look awful with those dark bags under your eyes. You're working too much, doing everything yourself, and you need to take a break." Ida interrupted Michael's thoughts. "Yes, you're probably right. I guess it's time for a vacation. Maybe I'll go home and see my mom. It's the perfect place to reboot." The man smiled tiredly. "That's right, go and see your mother. That should be the most important thing. Moms are like angels. They're the only ones who will always understand their child and forgive them, no matter what happens. I've also been waiting to see my son for 5 years. But he's always busy." Ida began to cry softly. At that moment, Michael could clearly imagine his mother crying somewhere, because she missed him so much. He felt so ashamed that the very next day, the man took a spontaneous vacation to the great surprise of his employees. "Mr. Sullivan, where will you go? The Maldives or Seychelles?" His colleagues, especially the young ones, were asking. But they never got to learn that their boss wasn't about to relax by the ocean. Instead, he was going to his home village, where he spent his childhood and where his parents lived. Michael hadn't been there for many years and dreamed of visiting the place where he grew up, where he had so many positive emotions and experiences, especially since summer was the best time to live close to nature, when everything blooms and smells great. Back in the village, next to his mother, Michael felt like a carefree child again. He felt like a caged bird that was finally set free. His old friends, of course, no longer lived there, but the places where they once ran around and played remained untouched. "Mom, is the old mill on the lake still standing, or has it collapsed?" the man asked, trying to remember all the favorite places from his childhood. "It's in ruins now. The rains and the snow have done their job," Mom sighed. "I want to go there tomorrow. I missed it all so much. The memories of my childhood have been warming my soul for so long, and now I finally have the chance to see everything with my own eyes again. Breathe in the familiar smell and feel the healing power of nature." "Are you going on a hike?" the mother asked, sounding concerned. "Then take some snacks with you. I'll bake your favorite raspberry pie in the morning and pour you some cold milk. But be careful, please. Don't go far into the forest. Who knows what kind of wild animal you could come across, and they are dangerous." "Don't worry, I know these lands like the back of my hand. And look at me. Do you really think some animal can scare me? Now, let's go to bed. We'll figure it all out in the morning." The next day, Michael went on his hike. He rode his bicycle up to the forest, and when the path ended, he continued on foot. The man remembered the path well. Back when he was little, they used to hang out with friends there all the time. Boys and girls from the neighborhood villages all gathered there, but over time, he lost touch with all of them, as they all left the village and settled down in different cities around the country. Finally, Michael reached the spot. The site was overgrown with tall grass and burdock, and the mill, or rather its remains, was standing on the lake shore, next to the old master's house. There was almost nothing left of the mill, while the house was still trying to hold on. Having walked around the site for a bit, the man decided to go inside the abandoned building, which was located in the farthest corner of the site. Coming closer to the house, Michael realized that there was someone there, because strange sounds were coming from inside. Suddenly, a young woman appeared in the doorway. She was clearly looking for something, but the sounds coming from the house didn't stop. The woman noticed Michael and didn't seem to be the least bit scared of the stranger. On the contrary, she was clearly delighted to see him and screamed, "Help! Please!" Michael followed the woman into the house and was taken aback by what he saw. There was a small lynx trapped in the floor, while its mother was running by the far end of the house and was whimpering softly. The kitten was very weak, and his hind legs fell through between the old rotten boards. The frightened kitten couldn't get out of the trap on its own, and the mother was unable to save her baby. Sometimes wild animals get into situations that they can't deal with without the help from humans, and this incident could have ended in tragedy if it weren't for Michael's fateful arrival. The man quickly assessed the situation and decided to help the animals by all means possible, to give them a chance for salvation. However, he was worried about how the adult lynx would react when he tried to approach her kitten, so he took a careful step forward. The predator could well attack the man, mistaking him for a threat to her offspring. Under other conditions, she might have done so. However, since her kitten was in such a vulnerable state, the mother seemed to have understood that without human help, her kitten would simply die. Michael slowly approached the little lynx, patted it on the head for a few seconds, and whispered something affectionately under his breath. That way, the man wanted to make sure that its mother stayed calm. The adult lynx patiently stood at a distance, while the young man took a hunting knife and quickly dismantled the rotten boards, freeing the kitten from the trap. The little lynx soon perked up and ran to its mother. It started poking its mother's belly with its wet nose, clearly wanting to nurse, but couldn't, since apparently the young predator didn't have enough milk. Then Michael thought about his snack. He opened the bottle of milk, poured a little into his palm, and treated the little animal. The lynx only looked at its savior with eyes full of gratitude. All this time, the young woman stood in the doorway, not daring to go inside. Leaving the animals in the house, Michael went towards the exit. He took the woman by the hand and silently led her away from the old abandoned house, so as not to frighten the rescued lynxes once again. Thus, holding hands, the young people silently approached the lake and sat down on the old wooden bridge. "Gwyneth, didn't you recognize me?" Michael asked his companion. "Do you remember when we used to run around here with a whole bunch of other kids, hide in the grass, sunbathe, and dive into the lake from this very bridge?" "Of course, I remember everything, Michael, because I was already in love with you back then, but you never noticed it," the woman answered timidly. "I was just a little girl for you." "I did notice it, but you really were a little girl back then, so I decided to wait for you to grow up." The man laughed. "I hope you weren't married." "No, I'm single." It turned out that Gwyneth also recently arrived at her parents' house and decided to visit her favorite place on the lake. The woman stumbled upon the poor little lynx, but she didn't dare to try and pull it out of the trap and was about to run to the village for help. But then her old friend arrived just in time. "I was still having some doubts," Michael said, "but now I'm 100% sure. I want to buy this land and build a house on it. Would you agree to live here with me?"